G'day everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a great day or a nice night. It's Sunday here, nearly the middle of the day. It's quite hot too, a real summer day here in Queensland, Australia. It's the last day of the year, 31st of December, can you believe that? The year's gone past so fast. I thought it was about time that I gave you another garden update. I know many of you have been asking how it's going and growing, what's been going on. Hope you all had a lovely Christmas. We did. Thanks everybody for your lovely Christmas wishes. Apologies if I was a little late replying to some of them. On Christmas Day, we had massive storms roll through the South East Queensland here. Anyone in Australia might have seen the news about how destructive they were. Really unprecedented with the gale force winds. Almost like a cyclone with the wind speeds and the rainfall and the destruction as well. Sadly, some people even lost their lives. It was all the way from the Gold Coast and right through the hinterland, a massive area that the storms destroyed, basically. So many large gum trees uprooted, lots of branches down where I live. Many of my neighbours have had lots of big branches come down on things. Roofs have been torn off. We were without power for a couple of days, so I wasn't able to get on the computer and do things like that. So was cooking stuff on the barbecue or the barbie, some people might say. So I had to make omelette on the barbecue. I think it was Boxing Day, to feed everybody, but that was okay. We do actually have an old generator, so we're lucky we could run the generator and keep the fridge and the freezer going and still manage to pump water to have a shower, but we were dining by candlelight. But we're fortunate enough now, we've got the power back on, thank goodness. Many of my neighbours are still without power though. There was actually hundreds of thousands of people right from the Gold Coast, right through the hinterland, without power for many days. Some of them still without power, so I hope you get power on soon. It wasn't the best time of the year to lose power, with everyone having fridges full of food at Christmas time. There was some branches come down in the yard, but nothing too bad here. The garden surprisingly coped pretty well. There's been many things go up to flower and seed, like the mustard greens, and lots of the basil's gone up to seed, but that's okay. I think that's a bit to do with the summer heat as well. So I'll give you a closer look at what's actually been happening in the garden. Firstly, in the corner of the garden here, I had these were just random tomatoes. I don't know how the seeds got there. I don't know if I accidentally put a few tomato seeds in when I put all the flower seeds out, but regardless, it doesn't matter. I left them there and let them grow, and I've got a whole mass of cherry tomatoes on the corner of the garden bed now, and they were actually starting to go over the pathway, so I got in and put some wire around them to try and sort of contain them in a certain area, trellis them up a little bit. And you'll see there's a whole heap of fruit on them, quite a fair bit of fruit. The bees this morning are loving the flowers. I've been watching the bees fly around. So we've got some tomatoes doing really well. I do also have something different that I went ahead and planted because I think we need a bit more shade on the garden. It's quite exposed. And have you ever grown a loofah before? This is a loofah vine that I've planted on the corner, and it's already grown quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to train it up through the wire on the outside of the garden fence is the idea. And I was hoping to put it on the top side of the fence here to make a little bit of shade for everything else. Now the loofah, for anyone who's not grown it or doesn't know much about it, it's fantastic. I love it. You can eat the baby fruit when they're young, a bit like a zucchini or courgettes. And as it goes older, you can leave some on, and when they're mature, they grow really big. You can dry them out and the insides make the loofah sponges that you see that they sell in the stores as well. So really amazing plant to grow. I've grown it a couple of years ago and yeah, had heaps of success. It seems to like the hot sunny weather where we are. So that's something new that I've planted. I've also planted some slips, as many of you call them, or cuttings from some sweet potatoes. These are just sweet potatoes I got from the food pantry. And within a couple of weeks, not very long, I've already got them growing up the outside garden fence here on the yard. So that's a success as well. And did you know you can actually eat sweet potato leaves? So not normal potatoes, you can't eat, they're toxic, but sweet potatoes, they're different again. You can actually eat the leaves and they're really, really good. A bit like spinach, but I think they're even tastier. So that's my sweet potatoes. Some of the beans have started to come up. You'll see on the top side of the fence. This one here, it does actually have flowers, but I don't know what's going on with it this morning. It's looking a little bit hungover. I have watered it up, but this one here is looking fantastic. These are Cherokee wax beans I've got growing here. And the choco, he's doing okay. It's starting to grow up a little bit. Maybe when the weather cools off a bit, it might take off a bit, I think. Might be a little bit too hot at the moment for the poor choco. But on the top side here, you'll see the basil. Now, I didn't end up separating them and I left them in a big clump, only because it was so hot and the soil was drying out. I probably need to look into getting a bit of mulch. But the basil, it's really taken off. This is not a sweet basil variety. This is like, I think from memory, like a licorice basil. So I might need to come out and prune it back a bit and make some pesto, I think. That's on the books. And my mustard greens, if I can show you here. My mustard greens has gone up to seed. I have been picking and eating some of it, but it was doing fantastic and now the heat's just made it bolt. We've got a few baby rock melons and a random tomato that I'm training up the other side of the fence. This is just a cherry tomato. My mulberry, I've been picking quite a few mulberries off it. It's doing fantastic. Over on the bottom left-hand corner of the garden in one of the smaller beds, the Siberian kale has come up pretty good. It's doing wonderful. The dwarf kale, on the other hand, I don't think has come up at all. There's a big gap there in the garden. So there's a couple lines of Siberian kale. This other slightly bigger plant here is mustard greens. They're doing quite good too. And what I'm most proud of over here on the bottom corner and excited about is my cucumbers. Check them out. They're doing fantastic. I think the cucumbers are doing the best out of anything in the garden, which is not surprising because they like the warm weather. They're right up to the top of the trellis I made for them. Right up to the top. And they have actually got beautiful flowers that they're starting to set. Can you see? There's quite a few. So these were 3 different types of cucumbers I planted. There's the crystal apple, round little cucumbers, long white cucumbers, and I planted also 2 Lebanese, like the little green cucumbers as well. So I'm excited to see all the fruit. The bees have been around the flowers this morning again too, so that's a good sign. And I might have to pick up that runner there. It's grown right out into the garden. And look what I discovered as well. Can you see there's a baby cucumber? One of my first baby cucumbers. How exciting. So that's our wonderful cucumbers, just doing fantastic. Really excited to get some fruit on those. We have got some silver beet up, but the silver beet are finding it a bit hard with the summer heat at the moment. Mostly the big Ford Hook giant variety have come up. There is a couple little magenta ones as well, only a couple though. So I'll need to come back along, and I have got some seeds still, so I'll try and poke in a few more seeds to hopefully get a few more plants up. And our pak choy here is coming up okay, the purple leaf one. And then you'll see my section of lettuce, which is, some's doing okay on the corner where it seems to get the water the most with the sprinkler. And there's gaps in the rows though, so I do have more lettuce seed kicking around, so I'll have to come along and poke a few more in, I think. I do need to leave a few gaps, so I might be able to move them around a bit too. We'll see how I go. So that's the lettuce. And in the tomatoes and peppers bed, we've got lots of sweet basil come up, as if I didn't need more basil, but it's all good. And I've actually transplanted from a pot I had growing. This is like a little, it's more ornamental, but you can eat them. They're really hot. A little ball chili plant. Has little round chilies. So I thought that was cool to plant in the garden. My other chili plants haven't come up yet. None of the capsicums have. There's a little bit of endive still trying to grow in the hot sun. So I might have to go back along and fill in the gaps there with some more seeds. The parsley hasn't come up yet. The tomatoes, you'll see little tiny clumps of seedlings that I have to separate and thin out a bit. They've only been growing quite slowly at the moment. It's quite hot, I think, for them. I might need to do something else, maybe cover them up with some terracotta pots or something in the daytime. If you've got any ideas, let me know. It just seems a little bit too hot for the tomatoes, the little seedlings. I've only planted them directly into the ground too, so I suppose that's my own fault. I could have had them growing somewhere in a bit of shade, but anyway, we'll work with what we've got going. So that's the tomatoes. So this bed is quite barren. Yeah, my best bed at the moment really is the cucumbers, I think. And as for my flower bed, I wouldn't really call it a flower bed anymore. So much for my idea of doing like a meadow, but that's okay. We need to constantly rework things when you're a gardener. Sometimes you have successes and sometimes you have failures. So I wouldn't really class it as a failure. I just class it as something new. It's going down a different path. There's heaps of bees still. Can you see the bees? See if I can show you some. There's one on the tomato there. So I've got all the white alyssum has been flowering wonderfully, but some of it's starting to die off in parts of the garden with the hot weather up this end. So some of it's still flowering down this end of the garden. There's not many other flowers come up that I can spot. There is this one beautiful yellowy orange flower here. This one actually got snapped off in the storm and I stuck it back in the ground and it still managed to flower. Can you believe that? That's how amazing plants are. And I did spy this morning a surprise cornflower. How pretty. So there's a couple flowers pop up here and there. I have actually planted in the garden as well some stuff that I had grown in pots that I thought would do better out in the garden. So I've got this big clump of, this is chives that I've only planted, maybe a week or so ago. So it's still adjusting. I did also plant over here, these are society garlic. You can eat it, but it's more probably for the flowers for the bees and it looks pretty. So a little bit of society garlic as well. And I have planted on the top corner here, hoping it might get a bit more shade, some apple mint. It's a variegated variety. It's got white and green leaves, you'll see. So it's still adjusting there. My sweet basil, there's a sweet basil bush here that's doing really good. I've actually been picking some of the leaves from it to use already, so that's fantastic. And this one here, that's looking a little bit yellow in the leaf, it's still adjusting. I hope the heat's not too much for it, is spearmint. It's got like a fragrance and a taste as well, a bit like toothpaste. So that's another one I've popped in the garden. That was in a pot that I had growing. Underneath here as well, I'll see if I can show you. Down here, this one here is a mushroom plant as well. It actually tastes a bit like mushroom, and you can put it in stir fries. It really likes a bit of shade, so it's a little bit overhung with the basil, which is probably helping it to begin with. Oh, and up the end near the mulberry tree, that end of the garden, there's a couple rocket plants that I've actually been picking some leaves from to have on sandwiches, which is really awesome. And on the top side here, I'll see if I can get to it, the basil's taken over. It's pretty much a garden of basil at the moment. Lucky I like basil. Down here, you'll see this one here. This is a Malabar spinach. This is a green stem variety. I will probably have to move it because it likes to climb like a vine, and maybe put it on the outside of the garden as well. And there is also a second one, I think, up in amongst all the mustard greens I spied coming up as well. So might have a little bit of Malabar spinach to train up another corner of the fence, I think. So you see the mustard greens, they're really pretty with the flowers. You can still eat the flowers as well. I've been chopping them up when I've been picking them really finely and making a nice potato salad and mixing through a whole heap of herbs and mustard greens, a bit of olive oil, sea salt, pepper. Oh, it's really good. If I get a chance, I'll see if I can show you in one of my upcoming videos. It's one of my favourite things to make at the moment. Some potatoes, and you can steam like peas and carrots, and then you mix through the greens. So it's like a warm potato salad with greens through it. It's really good. Oh, and on the bottom side down from the cucumbers, because this side of the garden cops the hot afternoon sun, I've also planted a couple loofahs just down. It's actually not in the garden, but on the outside edge of the garden, so they can grow up over the outside fence and hopefully shade where all the silver beet and the lettuce is, just to give some more protection. The loofah grows quite fast, so hopefully within a few weeks this might be a little bit shadier on this corner of the garden. So yeah, there you go. That's an update as of the end of the year with the veggie patch. And I will be working heaps more on the garden over the school holidays, and hopefully putting in more seeds and moving things around. Hopefully we might start to harvest some tomatoes and cucumbers. Hopefully we can get the lettuce coming along as well. Yeah, so exciting stuff to come. I hope you enjoyed that, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I wish you all the best for the coming year, for 2024. And until next time, my friends, take care.